A right hook sends the kid spinning down to the grass outside the middle school. He can't stand the bully, but as he spits a wad of blood-tinged saliva onto the ground, he has to admit through his aching jaw that the bully can throw one hell of a punch. A circle of kids around the two of them chant and laugh as others record it on their phones to post to social media later. The kid's heart pounds with anger and fear. It's all so unspeakably cruel, he thinks, and yet it feels like he's powerless to stop it. The bully stands over him, rubbing the knuckles of his punching hand. He looks larger than life to the kid, a towering figure of malice and strength. He may only be 13, but when you're 11, like the kid, that's a world of difference. The kid tries to reason his way out, but that ship has already sailed. The bully gives him a mean kick in the guts that squeezes the breath out of his lungs.
"If I wanted to hear you talk, I'd work you like a puppet, dweeb,"
the bully says with a malicious laugh. All the rest of the crowd laughs along with him. Maybe he should run, or maybe he could just let the beating happen. It would be easier that way, and the pain would fade by tomorrow. But something inside him, something stubborn, whispers that he can't just keep running. The kid can't take this any longer. He needs to fight back. Summoning up all of his strength, he leaps up and unleashes a punch into the bully's face, staggering him a little. But the kid's not an athlete. He's a mathlete. Once the initial shock of the punch wears off, the kid is mortified to see just how little damage he's done.
"That's it,"
the bully snarls.
"Now I'm really gonna destroy you."
The kid closes his eyes and braces for a punch, but nothing happens. He barely opens one eye to peek and sees a teacher emerging from the front doors of the middle school and walking towards them. He's been saved. But as the teacher approaches, the kid watches in disbelief as the bully's whole demeanor changes in an instant. His scowl softens, his posture relaxes, and suddenly the same face that sneered at him just moments ago shifts into a wide-eyed look of concern, like he's ready to lend a helping hand. The kid can barely process it. The bully's become the perfect picture of innocence, even going so far as to reach a hand down towards him. He wasn't beating the kid up. He was just helping him up after he tripped. He's so clumsy after all. And the worst part is, the teacher buys it. The kid's pulse pounds in his ears as he glances at the teacher, then back to the bully, who's now wearing a practiced, saintly expression. The crowd around them shifts too, putting on shocked, sympathetic faces, like they're all part of the same act. It's surreal, like a play where he's the only one who didn't get a script. The kid opens his mouth to protest, to shout the truth, but the words die in his throat. He knows they'd only look at him like he was the liar here. The injustice stings more than the pain in his bruised ribs. The kid can only run away from it all, tears stinging his eyes. He knows that if he sticks around until the teacher leaves, there will only be another savage beatdown waiting for him. He runs away from the school, past the bus, and all the way into town, just wanting to get away from it all. He wishes he could give the bully a taste of his own medicine, but that's impossible. He's just too good at playing goody-goody when the adults are looking. It seems like the kid is destined to be on the bottom of the social pecking order, forever. Resigned to what he's sure will be a long life of misery, he slips into a narrow, shadowy alley between two stores, pulling his knees to his chest. No one can see him here. No one can hurt him. He squeezes his eyes shut, trying to block out the sting of his frustration and helplessness. But deep down, he knows it's useless. If only there was a way to make them all understand, to turn the tables, even just once. That's when he hears an almost theatrical clearing of the throat. Startled, he looks up to see a figure standing at the mouth of the alley. It's a man, or at least he looks like a man, dressed in a sharp, old-fashioned suit with a colorful, swirling cape and a mustache that practically defies gravity. The stranger looks like he stepped out of a storybook. His eyes gleam with an unsettling warmth as he extends a gloved hand toward the kid. "Chin up, young man," the stranger says, his voice smooth and oddly comforting. "A little bird told me you're in need of a little assistance." The kid's heart races as he stares at the stranger, feeling a strange mixture of caution and curiosity. The man's appearance seems almost too perfect, like he's practiced this moment 100 times before. The kid's instincts scream at him to be wary. No one ever just appears like this. There's something mesmerizing about the man's calm smile and the way he twirls the end of his mustache with a practiced flick. Even when the stranger dips his hand into his jacket and pulls out a handful of brightly wrapped lollipops, each one gleaming in the dim light, the kid feels his worries fading, replaced by an odd sense of relief, like maybe, just maybe, this is exactly what he's been waiting for. These, the stranger says with a wink, are a little unconventional. A one-time solution for a particular sort of problem. All it takes is a single lick from that dreadful bully of yours, and you'll have all the revenge you could dream of. As simple as that, he says with a wink. Just make sure he actually tastes it. And don't worry, its effects are completely unforgettable. He offers the kid a lollipop, his smile widening. All he needs to do is ensure that his bully licks the lollipop, and then he'll be able to have his revenge. It's really that simple. As though it's simple to convince his worst enemy to lick a lollipop. Consider it a temporary adjustment, he adds with a conspiratorial grin. A little taste of poetic justice. But remember, there's no going back once he's had a taste. So use it wisely. The kid hesitates for only a moment before reaching out and accepting a lollipop from the stranger. Dr. Wondertainment watches him, his smile widening. Good choice, he murmurs. I suspect this will be life-changing. The next day, the bully receives a letter slipped into his locker early in the morning. And wouldn't you know it, it's from the girl he's had a crush on all year. In the letter, she confesses her love and seals the deal with a gift. A lollipop. The bully's heart flutters, and with a smirk of disbelief, he unwraps the lollipop and tries it. His expression instantly turns to confusion, and he pauses, pulling the lollipop from his mouth. There's something odd about the taste, a strange, bitter tang, like he just licked the bottom of a shoe, but mixed with sugar. He winces, almost spitting it out, but then glances around and steels himself, deciding to play it cool. After all, it's a gift from her, and she could be watching. Maybe it's supposed to taste like this. He checks the wrapper on the candy. It says, Dr. Wondertainment's Tantalizing Tongue Twisters, trademark, asphalt flavor. What kind of joke candy is this? He takes another cautious lick, hoping the bitterness will fade, but instead, the taste grows stronger, leaving an unpleasant numbness on his tongue. Before he can figure out why the candy tastes so off, he notices the teacher approaching down the hall. Great, probably here to check up on him after yesterday's incident. No problem, he'll turn on his usual charm, play the model student, and then... But when he opens his mouth to speak, a sharp, jagged string of curse words explodes from his lips. Every head in the hallway turns, and a silence settles over the crowd. The bully's eyes widen in horror. Those weren't his words. In fact, he's not even sure he moved his mouth at all. The teacher's face goes pale, her lips thinning as she glares down at him. What did you just say to me? She asks, each word clipped and icy. The bully opens his mouth to apologize, but his voice betrays him again. He tries to clamp his lips shut, but they twist into an angry snarl as another outburst erupts from his mouth, this time even worse than before. He can't stop it. Each word feels like someone else is forcing it out, dragging his voice along with it. It's like watching himself in a nightmare. He's saying the most horrific words, the most brutal insults, all directed at the teacher in front of him. He's utterly mortified that he's somehow spewing all of these obscenities. To him, it doesn't even sound like his own voice, but rather someone imitating him. By the time he's done, he's standing there in harrowed silence in front of everyone. Before he can even try to offer more words to defend himself, the teacher's hand grips his wrist and drags him down the hall. His ruse has been destroyed. He'll probably be in detention until high school. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the school, the kid sits in the AV room, watching it all unfold on the security feed. His face curves into a grin as he listens to the bully's pitiful apologies and excuses, each one sweeter than he could have ever imagined. The taste of revenge is exhilarating, almost addicting. But as the kid laughs, unaware of the full implications, a shadow falls over his face on the screen, as though something else is watching and waiting. But while the kid revels in his victory, the true nature of Dr. Wondertainment's tantalizing tongue twisters trademark remains as twisted and enigmatic as his creator. Revenge may be sweet, but as the SCP Foundation has discovered, these candies leave a bitter aftertaste for everyone who dares to use them. On the surface, these suckers appear to be nothing more than a strange confection, a harmless novelty. But as the SCP Foundation has come to learn, these tantalizing tongue twisters trademark are anything but innocent. In fact, they're classified as SCP-3147, a product of Dr. Wondertainment, designed to sow discord in the most curious ways. And yes, I am, unfortunately, legally obliged to say the trademark part, due to the actions of Dr. Wondertainment's thaumaturgic lawyers. At face value, there's very little that seems actively anomalous about instances of SCP-3147. They're small lollipops made of a sphere of hard candy on the end of a white stick, covered in a wrapper that features Dr. Wondertainment branding, as well as the flavor of the item in question, which, as you've seen, and will further see, can skew a little bizarre. The same cannot be said of these candies on a molecular level. Foundation testing has yielded no progress in finding anything anomalous about the candy itself, or the packaging containing it. If you enjoy one of these candies alone, you're unlikely to even notice anything strange about them. The anomalous effects of SCP-3147 only kick in once the candy has been licked by at least 2 people, which I personally find to be terribly unsanitary, even when you're dealing with non-anomalous candy. However, when a second person, or any others beyond that, lick an instance of SCP-3147 that was first licked by someone else, their oral cavity will come under the control of another member of the group. See what I mean about it being highly conceptual? While under the anomalous effect, not only will their mouth be at the mercy of another licker, but they will speak with the voice of the person controlling them. The amount of time the person remains affected is directly proportional to the amount of candy ingested by the subject, with the current minimums and maximums, with some variation, being 2 to 24 minutes. And because nothing involving Dr. Wondertainment is ever easy to deal with, these candies are rarely packaged alone. While they can be sold individually, the SCP Foundation has confiscated boxes with as many as 10 items per pack. These packs will often feature the following typically quirky Dr. Wondertainment ad copy. New from Dr. Wondertainment, the mouth-watering treat that will have you speaking in tongues. Need a party pick-me-up? Just gather 2 or 3 of your bestest friends, pick out your favorite flavor of Dr. Wondertainment's tantalizing tongue twisters trademark, and you're good to go. Let everyone get a tongue-teasing taste, then marvel as you give each other the gift of gab. Warning, maximum fun achieved with 4 friends. Dr. Wondertainment trademark and his candy crafting crew are not liable for any damages, physical, psychological, emotional, and or paranatural, caused by sharing Dr. Wondertainment's tantalizing tongue twisters trademark among 5 or more people. Play safe, kids! In context, that last comment feels almost sarcastic. After coming into possession of several packs of the anomalous contraband candy, Dr. James Smythe was put in charge of conducting experiments on members of D-Class personnel to explore the full potential effects of SCP-3147. It probably won't surprise you to hear that things went very quickly off the rails. In the first experiment, acting as a kind of control, D2172 alone was given an instance of SCP-3147 to sample. The flavor was sandy seashell. D2172 ingested everything that was given to him, except for the stick in the packaging, and experienced no anomalous effects, though he did report that the flavor was comparable to cream soda filtered through wet sand. Yummy. The next experiment was conducted on D2172 and D56980, using a candy with the flavor label Shoe Shine. The duo gained control of each other's mouths, which was an extremely strange experience for both of them. Smythe then gave them both a tongue twister to recite using the other one's mouth. This proved to be difficult, given the inherent difficulty of the tongue twister itself, plus the inherent disorientation of being in control of someone else's mouth rather than your own. It's a feeling I can't personally say I can relate to. Dr. Smythe noted, flavor said to be like leathery licorice. Despite the difficulties experienced using another person's mouth to speak, both subjects expressed that they enjoyed the experience and wished to continue taking part in future experiments with SCP-3147. With the next experiment, Dr. Smythe hoped to up the ante even further by having 4 different D-classes all lick the anomalous lollipop, which admittedly sounds a little uncomfortable when said aloud. These men were D2172, D11872, D42271, and D56980. The flavor of lollipop they were given was the extremely unappetizing pickled pepper. Incidentally, 4 subjects is also the maximum number recommended by the official packaging, so they were really pushing their limits on this one. Each time a different D-class licked the lollipop, they gained control of the mouth of the previous person who licked it, and thanks to being given permission to ingest all the candy on the stick, this effect remained for 15 minutes. In this time, they all conversed freely, enjoying the surreal nature of the experience. Dr. Smythe noted, flavor exactly as expected. On a personal note, I feel sorry for our poor transcriptionist. It was difficult enough for the Ds themselves to keep track of exactly who was talking. The goal of the next test was not to test how many people could be affected by the anomaly, but some of its potential applications. In this case, how it would interface with voice recognition technology. The subjects in this case were D2172 and D56980, and the flavor was the enigmatic chucked wood. After consuming the candy, they were given a voice-locked container, coded to open when it heard D56980 say, "Open Sesame." While D56980 stood on the other side of the room, D2172 approached the box. D56980 spoke through D2172's mouth, successfully unlocking the box on the second attempt. They continued testing this method with a variety of other voice recognition technologies, and the rate of success did not change as this variable shifted. Dr. Smythe noted, thankfully, the inability of the subject to directly use the voice that they have taken keeps SCP-3147 from being a substantial security threat. The next experiment was performed on another 4 members of D-Class personnel, D2172, D11872, D42271, and D56980. This time, the flavor selected was Fuzzy Wuzzy. Having tested a few different vectors of SCP-3147's effects, now Dr. Smythe felt it was time to discover the distance that the anomalous effects were operational over. That's why, after having them each consume an equal amount of the candy, Smythe had the 4 affected subjects stand at equidistant points around the perimeter of Site-272, and then were told to speak, conveying specific messages on the behalf of researchers supervising them. When the subjects got over the initial disorientation of not being able to hear their own voices as they spoke, things went swimmingly. Messages were cleanly conveyed between each member of affected D-Class personnel that did not degrade in quality despite the distance, and they were able to do this for approximately 21 minutes, exceeding even the most optimistic of the researchers' estimations. Dr. Smythe noted, further testing at longer distances is required. Plans are being drafted, and an appropriate test site will be located before submitting the proposed experiment to the site director for approval. If the Foundation can reverse engineer this effect, it could possibly be used as an emergency communication method. In a grim piece of tempting fate, things got out of hand during the 13th SCP-3147 experiment, when researchers pushed the boundaries just a little too far. They exceeded the recommended number of participants per candy and used 5 test subjects. The flavor was bitter butter, and the results were disastrous for all involved. During testing, the 5th member of the group, D42271, found her mouth being controlled by a little girl speaking from an unknown location, much to the confusion of the researchers and the other D-classes in the test group. The little girl cried for help through the D-class's mouth, and when she was questioned by Dr. Smythe about her location, she said, "I don't know. I was in a toy store with my mom, and I went to go look at the dolls. Then there was this big man that grabbed me when Mom wasn't looking, and he took me here. He said he needed to test stuff, and he keeps feeding me candy, and I don't like it anymore, and my tummy hurts, and..." Naturally, everyone in attendance was stressed by this, D42271 in particular. After a period of silence, the little girl's voice entered a state of audible panic, screaming out, He's here! He's here! Tell him to go away! I can't eat anymore! Tell him to stop! Please make him stop! D42271 valiantly tried to help, screaming through a body she didn't know for the assailant to leave the little girl alone, even as she felt as though a metal contraption was forcing open her jaw. But then, her body doubled over and began profusely vomiting, making everyone in attendance panic and call off the experiment early. Experiments were done on D42271's vomit in the aftermath, and it contained trace amounts of several other anomalous food items, which I've taken care to catalog here. SCP-1916, Zero-G-Wiz Moonrocks trademark. These are a series of multicolored jawbreakers, each one corresponding to a different planet mostly in our solar system, including Martian Cherry, Venusian Berry, Lunar Lime, Jovian Jelly, Outer Space Strawberry, and Planet X. Depending on the gravitational state of the corresponding celestial body, the gravity of anyone eating the candy is also affected, either massively increasing or decreasing their weight without any alteration to their mass or shape. SCP-1842, Dr. Wondertainment's Magic Microwave Set trademark. This is a toy microwave that can convert a toxic clay substance known as SCP-1842-2 into any edible substance that it's molded into. The resulting foodstuffs are known as SCP-1842-3, which is harmless but has no nutritional value whatsoever. It is what was found in the affected D-Class's vomit. And also SCP-1079, Dr. Wondertainment's Bubble Bath Bonbons trademark. These are another bizarre and disturbing confection which, once consumed, transforms a non-dangerous portion of the subject's blood into bubble bath liquids, which they then secrete from their skin, causing their body to be instantaneously cleaned and likely leaving their clothes an uncomfortable, wet mess. All of this led to an extremely unsettling discovery. It seems that Dr. Wondertainment poses a danger to children beyond just their anomalous toys and confections. The 13th test indicated that the group of interest are kidnapping children to use as living guinea pigs for their various products against their will. A realization only intensified when Foundation collaboration with conventional law enforcement revealed that the little girl D42271 had channeled corresponded exactly with a young girl who had gone missing in Broken Cliff, Missouri. D42271 requested to be submitted for further testing on SCP-3147, perhaps hoping that she could reconnect with the poor little girl and be a part of helping her escape the diabolical Dr. Wondertainment's clutches. This request, however, was denied out of security concerns. The Foundation has done what they can to keep a lid on this latest example of Dr. Wondertainment's whimsical mayhem. Containment procedures dictate that no more than 144 instances of SCP-3147 are to be contained in Safe Storage Locker 87A at Site-272 at any given time, and any others are to be noted and incinerated immediately. The same goes for any advertising material discovered in the field. Physical instances are to be incinerated, and online instances are to be deleted. If a person is found to be in possession of an instance of SCP-3147, the anomalous item is to be confiscated immediately, and they are to be treated with Class A amnestics if they have witnessed any of SCP-3147's anomalous effects. The Foundation has also distributed materials related to a fake recall effort, claiming that exposure to SCP-3147 has a deliriant effect on victims. As you've already seen, researchers have had their fun performing experiments with this confectionery anomaly, but that doesn't mean these experiments aren't tightly regulated. Experiment proposals must be submitted to Research Lead Dr. James Smythe for approval. Any experiments involving 5 or more test subjects must also be approved by the site director and overseen personally by Dr. Smythe, just to make sure nobody uses research privileges irresponsibly. A wise owl was asked asked, "How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?" When it comes to Dr. Wondertainment's Tantalizing Tongue Twisters trademark, this wise old researcher recommends you play it safe and stick to chocolate. Check out the DrBob Patreon and become a junior researcher today. Now go and watch another entry from the files of DrBob, like SCP-1550, Dr. Wondertainment's Custom Pets, Top 12 SCP Animals compilation.